Vulnerability is the state of being exposed to physical or emotional harm, or having a weakness that allows for exploitation. Well, that's a heck of a definition of vulnerability. Vulnerability, in my mind, is a matter of exposing yourself, yes, but I never thought of vulnerability as a weakness. And I guess for one part of the definition, had a bug on me, vulnerability is a weakness. It's a weakness that you can choose to be vulnerable or not to be vulnerable. I never thought of it as a weakness. It's pretty interesting. Another part of Google's definition of vulnerability is it is characterized by uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, but also by courage and authenticity. Types include emotional, physical, and cyber vulnerabilities. So Google's definition of vulnerability, at least the beginning part of it, is defined by its definition or a description of a weakness. And I'll tell you, as a man, being vulnerable is definitely not my strong point. I don't like to be weak. I don't like to be perceived as vulnerable. You know, I grew up in a single family household, just my mom. At about 11 years old, I remember my mom telling me to do something and I said no. And from that point on, I said, no, I'll never do it again. Anything you tell me what to do and I'm gonna do the opposite. That didn't work out too good for me. As a young man, without a father in the household, I bumped into every wall, learning. I did have a very good grandfather who was definitely a male role model and who helped me to learn different things like the trade of construction. He worked as a carpenter years in a union in California. What a great guy. Unfortunately, he lived about an hour away from where I grew up. And where I grew up was in government housing. I would say the projects, but they weren't the projects. They were a sliding scale of income type. Government subsidized housing is the technical term. And was one of the only white kids in my neighborhood. How you grow up definitely forms who you are, how you see yourself, how you perceive yourself. Growing up on government cheese, a mom who had 3 jobs and worked very hard to provide. She was never able to be a male role model. Obviously, you're not gonna have that from a woman. She tried to be tough. She was a very, very good woman. She went to be with the Lord on her birthday at 67 years old, back in 2014. I miss her, my grandfather. I was the only one in the room when my grandfather passed at the hospital. I miss him. Why do I do this? Why am I telling you this? Some people watching this, who cares? I get it, because who am I? But without vulnerability, without sharing parts of your heart, no one gets to know who you are. Sometimes people say, well, I don't have any friends. How vulnerable are you? Now listen, Google's definition of vulnerability, just by the definition, the first half of it, as a weakness, if you think like a computer that has a vulnerability, you don't want that because you might get hacked. You don't want to go around sharing with everybody everything about your life. I shared with you small portions, very small details, very huge details to how I grew up and how that formed me as a person. I'm not sharing that for any other reason than I'm practicing vulnerability in this art called video production on this platform, YouTube. The reason I'm doing it though is because it's very uncomfortable for me. And how can I talk to you about being vulnerable with your art if I'm not willing to do it myself? Now, why in the world am I in the mountains right now? Well, it just so happens that before I made my first feature film, before I made my first independent, full-length feature movie, right here is the location where I came up and I shot about a 10-minute scene. And this 10-minute scene was a horror movie. It was a gigantic guy that we found here locally in the community. We said, you want to be part of an independent film, a short film? You're going to play the big, oversized, murderous massacre guy in the woods, carrying a log, smashing everybody. What do you think about that? He was a rock and roll guy. He was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm in. So we came up, we shot the thing, we had fun. We did it for about, I don't know, it was about a day, I think. A lot of blood and guts, a lot of gruesomeness. It was fun. But at that time, I didn't realize that I had a calling on my life. I had no idea, to be a filmmaker. Now, when you hear that, you say, oh, great, you had a calling on your life. Who called? For me personally, it was my walk with the Lord. It was my walk trusting in God, putting my life in His hands, saying, what do you want me to do? At this point in my life, I'm willing to do whatever you say. Tell me, where do we go? First thing He told me, I don't want you to do this movie. I said, okay. We just spent a long time. I think we drew up about, I'd say about 150 storyboards, maybe less. A lot of them. I did not. I hired a guy who paid him. We worked on it, developed the idea, ready to shoot the feature, and there was the kibosh, right? Put right down on top of it. Nope, you're not gonna do this. Cool, so I didn't. Wouldn't be too long after that I was in a very vulnerable, ready, Lord, take me, use my life, show me what you want me to do. He showed me, I want you to go make this Western movie about the prodigal son, which I was. I'm hitting the microphone. I was the prodigal son at that time. The movie is here on my channel. You can check it out. I had 3 weeks as the story goes, and I will do an in-depth story at some point. But the long of it, the short of it is that one movie opened up a contract to do multiple films. As an independent film producer with no studio, with no investors, with no money, I was able to get that done. The reason I share that, I had studied film for quite a while. I had a friend who was a mentor. I considered him a very good mentor, who was a producer at one of the major studios in Hollywood. I had met another person who was very heavily involved in high dollar independent films, had talked to this gentleman on multiple occasions. I knew that the film industry has and will always be about highest quality, so you have a chance of getting the money back. I walked away from doing film production. No, I'm not gonna do that. There's no way I'm gonna produce a movie without a real budget. I was in on that idea. You need millions of dollars to go out and make your art. It's definitely the way when you're talking the industry standard of producing and making production. I had no idea that being an independent filmmaker for the last 15 years, now going on 16 years, that the Lord could sustain me financially and could bring that provision and could do all of those cool things. And that's exactly what I've experienced for the last 15 years. What this channel is gonna be about, this is a new path, a new section of my life, if you will, a new chapter. And I definitely want you to come along and check it out, because I wanna create not only here, I plan on traveling in the future, making some really cool stuff. I'm sharing the vision for no other reason than I'm trying to be vulnerable. I'm trying to say, here's the plan, here's what I believe. I'm gonna go ahead and try to lay out a plan of documentaries, film productions, Captain Obvious, walk and talk vlogs. And I wanna make a collection of these things over the next 9 months, which will be the end of 2026. And I want you to come along with me. I want you to check this out. I don't plan on making religious content. I don't plan on making non-religious content. I don't have a plan. I wanna make content about people that are like myself, that are trying to find their way, find their voice, find their purpose in this life. And I wanna do that together. If you wanna come along, check this out. Maybe we'll be able to put something good into the world and see what happens. I think that's a good plan. This feels a little long-winded. I'm gonna wrap it up, but I appreciate you coming along, and I appreciate your story, and I wanna hear it. I wanna go around and I wanna meet people, film it, maybe documentary form, maybe just vlog form, maybe just walking down the street, having a conversation. If you think that's interesting, if you think that's something you wanna check out, subscribe, like, do all that good stuff. But make sure when you see an AM Ransom production, give it a shot, check it out, see what it's all about. And I guarantee you, nothing. I have no plan. The only plan So take the camera along, make some cool content, and hopefully you and others will enjoy it. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.